Welcome back. This is Inside Politics. Thank you for staying with us. Now, a section of leaders from Rift Valley, allied to Baringo's Senator and KANU Chairperson Gideon Moi, have called for an all-inclusive national conference early next year to discuss the way forward on the Building Bridges initiative. The group also wants a referendum on some of the recommendations in the BBI report to be held by August 2020. Another group of lawmakers from the Rift Valley that is now allied to Deputy President Dr. William Ruto challenged their opponents to come out with alternative ways that the report could be executed into law without passing through Parliament.
Current and former MPs from the Rift Valley, allied to Baringo Senator Gideon Moi, converged at Maasai Lodge, Kajiado County, to brainstorm over the BBI report. The leaders are opposed to the parliamentary initiative in implementing the BBI recommendations.
We have resolved that an all-inclusive forum, bringing together all political parties and stakeholders, including religious bodies, be established to discuss the way forward on the Building Bridges initiative recommendations. This forum will pave way for the establishment of a committee of experts, COC, to draft the relevant bills to actualize and concretize the BBI recommendations.
The continual review requires participation by Kenyans, and we cannot allow it to be strangled by any group.
BBI report must be subjected to a referendum. We also want this document to be owned by Kenyans. It is not a document for the elite.
And at the Lake Naivasha resort in Naivasha, close to 100 legislators held a one-day retreat to discuss the BBI report that is yet to be made public despite having been launched Wednesday last week. The MPs equally expressed their support for the BBI report.
It is our desire to see that everyone reads, understands and engages on the report as a whole in order to contribute meaningfully to the various issues that are interconnected and often complementary.
Hatutaki kuona kwamba tunapaki nyuma, na sisi kama wakulima na sisi kama wafugaji tutakuwa mstari wa mbele kuhakikisha kwamba tunaenda mbele.
We ask the government to establish a mechanism through the Office of the Attorney General or a task force to expeditiously draft legislation and/or amendments and forward them to Parliament or county assemblies or any other relevant institutions.
Already, divisions have emerged since the launch of the BBI report, which might also inform political formations ahead of the 2022 polls, if the sentiments from the two factions of the Rift Valley is anything to go by.
The other meeting, I'm told, that is in Naivasha, is a rebellion. So those ones are rebels who are rebelling against the president, that we may go the same route in terms of supporting BBI, but we will not go the same route moving forward in 2022.
We have absolutely no problem with the anti-parliament crusaders as long as they propose an alternative constitutional mechanism for enacting legislation.
We are proposing that the referendum be held by August 2020.
In Wajir County, the BBI report is also sending tremors on the ground.
We are going through it. We will interrogate it. We will look at the gains. We will look at the pitfalls, and at an opportune time, make an important announcement that will guide us on the issues that we agree. But generally, on the face of it, it's a good document.
The other thing, it is trying to harmonize Kenyans together. It is bringing inclusivity, and the positions that have been created are good enough.
The Ford Kenya Party is also seized of the BBI craze and wants the report to be made available and easily accessible to Kenyans.
Publish the BBI report in English, in Kiswahili, and circulate to everybody the way you did the draft constitution. So kila mwananchi aweze kusoma.
Mimi sijapata nakala ya BBI. Yaani wametoa tu summary, lakini ripoti yenyewe hatujaiona. Mimi nataka kumsihi rais na wale watu wanahusika na ripoti ya BBI isambazwe.
As the BBI debate rages, 11 MPs from Western Kenya, led by the Chief Whip in the National Assembly, Benjamin Washiali, converged in a Nairobi hotel to brainstorm on the BBI report and chart the way forward. Patrick Abimo, KTN News.
All right, divisions are emerging over the BBI report. Yes, the document should be owned by Kenyans, but politicians are all too enthusiastic about it. Let's read into it. Kipchumba, let's start with you.
First of all, maybe to tell Kenyans, I've gone through both the report and the summary. Whereas there are fundamental things that have been proposed by or talked about by Kenyans, which some of them I would like to see them come to fruition. Because if honestly they are from Kenyans, they deserve to be given a serious look. But secondly, what I don't understand is the vigor, the gusto, and the energy of politicians. They must just disagree. Even when they are agreeing, they are agreeing to disagree. When all of you say you support BBI, what is the reason of going to different places to issue pressers? Because at times I think the problem of this country is not Kenyans. Our problem lies and begins and ends with politicians. Because, Jesse, take for example the BBI issue. I do not see where anybody can disagree on why we do not need the BBI. First of all, the political class is in unanimous agreement that we endorse it. Then the question should be, why don't they, the political class, just have an item, say, on devolution, this is what we need to do. On governance, this is what we need to do. This one needs a referendum. We put them in a public referendum, it goes. This one needs an amendment, constitutional amendment through parliament and Article 257. We go that direction. It is easier. But again, you realize that politicians are in the business of selling disagreements. So we must allow them to do that as it may. But the other thing now, addressing the issues of those groupings. You have to realize, Jesse, that this country, in the beginning, there was no country like Kenya. What happened was that the Britons came and drew a map that it was convenient for them to govern and convenient for them to extort resources from us. The 43 nations that form the state Kenya will always have diverse political interests. And it is for the simple reason that our politics is organized along the tribe, because we realize that, which is a misfortune, that most of our problems that attack us not as a people, let's say, who come from Eldoret, but as Kalenjins who come from Rift Valley, which is, I think we are also defeating BBI in some way if we allow Luya leaders to sit somewhere, Sijui Kamba leaders to go somewhere, Somali leaders, but also what must be commended in those groupings, like for example the one in Rift Valley, I was happy to see that in both groups, it is not a tribal grouping. So that if leaders can come together and say, so long as they are coming together, not to say that they want to secede from being Kenyans, I appreciate and encourage that kind of a discussion, because Rift Valley is where we need BBI more than any other region. Because the people at the coast might need BBI for land grabbing and what have you. But for us, we need from it for the historical injustice, issues of election, post-election violence, all those issues. The center of it all is at Rift Valley. So when we see those leaders coming together, we can also say BBI is achieving what it was meant to. If leaders can come together, Samburu, Kalenjin, Kikuyus, name all of them, to Masais and all the Turkanas, it is a good thing going forward. What now must be done is we must have a forum whereby we must discuss BBI, and I'm not talking about the bombers kind of a forum where you call political juveniles to come and lecture people. We want a Kenyan discussion where we see somebody from Oljororo talking about issues affecting pastoralists. We see a fisherman from Kondele telling us this is where we want to go, taking the debate from the politicians and their tribes to the people who matter, who are the Kenyans.
But is that set to happen? Is it going to get from the politicians to the Kenyans? What do you think?
It is us, the people, who must take it. We must not allow the elites in this country, and if Kipchumba is among the elites, we must not allow the Kipchumbas, the Bichachis, to hijack the process. When you read the document, Jesse, you realize that Kenyans are very bright people. If we allow politicians to lecture us about who will become the prime minister, we lose it. You have to realize that in there lies things that will improve devolution, lies things that will improve our health sector, lies issues that will sort the issue of agriculture and other things, and also the issues of youth. Although I might not agree with the opinions of Kenyans in the document, but at least it is a step forward. So we should not at any point, if we must, let politicians control the 10% which they have the legal instruments. Let the 90% be owned by Kenyans.
All right.
I think Kipchumba has stated it quite well, that if this process is kidnapped by politicians, we're in trouble. Like he started by saying, it was quite hilarious for me to hear a politician say, we agree with the other side to support BBI, but we don't agree. And that's the nature of Kenyan politics. And that's why actually the BBI report was initiated, the BBI process. It was initiated because of the idea that for the Kenyan politician, he does not know how to ply his trade unless he's dividing people. It's always an us versus them. It's never what do we want to achieve. And one of the things that I thank God for concerning the BBI report is because finally our politicians have been forced to sit down and actually consider what is good for this country and not what is good for them. And the reason why they've been forced to agree with BBI is because they could not find something to say, aha, this is how we can be divided. And that's something that we must hold on to for dear life as a people. We must hold on to the idea that, you know what, our politicians can be held to a higher standard other than their usual tibim, wembe ni ule ule, and I thank God that BBI does not have a banana or orange yet, so that we do not reduce the whole thing to fruit and colors and things like that. We need to interrogate issues from very selfish perspectives. Reduced and simplified tax, for example. Kenyans should pursue that to the hilt, because that is something that if it's implemented today, tomorrow when you go to the shop, the price of whatever you're buying is different. The next day when you're getting your salary, whatever is being taken away is different. These are the things and the fruit that we should hold on to and hold this country and its leadership to account to a report that is by and large good for the people of this republic. In fact, one of the things that we should be pushing and agitating for very seriously, immediate implementation, is that please, could Cicely Kariuki please go to Kenyatta Hospital? Let her also feel what it feels like for there not to be enough blood because we don't have enough plastic bags to contain the blood. Those are things that BBI suggests, and those are things that we should not let go of. Now, as for these groupings of politicians and stuff like that, I congratulate them for one thing. At least they were not nonsensical in their conclusions. I don't think it was necessary for them to meet as tribal leaders because it goes against the spirit of BBI. But I hope now that they've all endorsed it, they'll begin to sit down and begin to put their heads together as to how, not just constitutional change, but can we change the constitution of the Kenyan? How is a Kenyan made up? But finally, my final statement to my Luya leader who was saying there that he's not read the full report, please download WhatsApp. It is all over.
You know about this famous BBI, for which I've come under fire because apparently families are all supposed to support the BBI unanimously. No one has told me to date what the BBI will do better or differently than the Constitution of Kenya had it been respected and implemented correctly. So for me, BBI, as a byproduct process of the handshake, which has now taken an eminence, a preeminence over the Constitution of Kenya, that was penned in the blood of those who lost their lives during the post-election violence of 2007-8. I wonder. So I am not somebody who supports the BBI because I believe that the BBI, much as I have read it, because if I'm going to tell you why I don't support it, I'm going to read it. And I have read it and I have reread it. Is because for me, what I see ultimately about the BBI, in addition to all the nice things like going to public hospitals and public schools that I mentioned, BBI is there to do 4 specific things. To blame the people of Kenya, and that happens in Chapter 3. We have more rights and few responsibilities, yet the Constitution is very clear about it. Number 2, to undermine devolution. Go to Chapter 9 and see how devolution is being watered down. Number 3, which is linked to devolution, annex Nairobi County as a cross-cutting issue so that it is no longer a county. And number 4, which for me is the most important thing and perhaps the only reason why this entire process was set up, is around succession. This powerful Prime Minister. Go to chapter 5 and read all about it. So for me, when I see the BBI and we're trying to squeeze juice from something that has been retrofitted to suit the succession agenda, I have a big problem with it. That said, I'm very impressed with the Tanga Tanga team. And please, I am not in Tanga Tanga. I never have been, and I never will be. I said last week that Deputy President Ruto is not a spent force. You know, when people saw him looking so subdued and they were making fun of him in Bomas, he's not a spent force, not by a long shot. And if you look at martial arts, there is Aikido, which is a bit like judo, where you use your opponent's energy and momentum against him or her. I think part of the strategy, I don't know, because I'm not in Tanga Tanga, I don't sit in any of those meetings, is to use this momentum and strength that has come with the Kieleweke faction that is 100% pro-BBI. You saw the president so annoyed speaking in vernacular earlier on this week, and have taken all of that energy to say, okay, boss, we agree with it. We are using this energy and this force that you're coming to attack us with to say, okay, tuko pamoja. Let us work on it. And I think maybe the broader idea is to say, whatever you throw at us, bring it on, we are ready. Parliamentary, referendum, your committee of experts, whatever it is, bring it on. But there's one thing I want to say about this whole BBI process. Oh, and the ethnic antagonism bit, which is spoken about, I think, in chapter 4 of the BBI, where they say ethnic antagonism might be also resolved through regional integration, as in the East African community. I say, what is going on? When you still see Kamatusa being formed again, Kamatusa with a few Kikuyus and a few other people coming in, you're seeing these blocks developing again, all polarized around the BBI and what the implications for succession mean. But let me come finally to this whole deliberate, for me, confusion around the schedule of dissemination of the BBI report. You know, when something is put out, then you have your period for dissemination, internalization, and feedback. What I'm seeing is a lot of confusion at that level, at the political class level. Even the BBI committee space themselves say it has to go to the people. Then somebody says, we need a committee of experts. Then somebody says, it's a referendum. No, it's going to parliament. So I feel that in the process, with that lack of clarity, we'll wake up one day and we're already in referendum. And the people of Kenya, for whom this BBI is supposed to be, will not have had a chance to truly understand what it's saying. But I end with where I started. Fidelity, respect for the Constitution of Kenya has not been there, and that is why we are at this space where we're trying to reinvent the wheel and put old wine into new wineskins, when we have a document that, if it were respected, would have answered all the problems, including CS karaoke going to a public hospital, because there you would not be plundering and looting resources in a manner that allows you then to insulate yourself ultimately from using the public services that Wanjiko, Nafula, Mora are not able to access.
Well, the debate around the BBI report confirms that we're in a leadership crisis. Kenya as a nation, we're in a leadership crisis, because these tribal groupings, you may say that from Rift Valley, from Kisii, from wherever it is, those are tribal groupings. And one of the MPs from Western Kenya has confirmed that he has not gone through the report. But these are the same people who are taking positions on these reports. So how do you take a position on an issue and yet you will not consume the content? So it means that we've got a leadership crisis. It's a mediocrity at the highest level. And the reason why these leaders are very excited with this, they know that if you go through the BBI report and you get a consensus, like what we did during the 2010 Constitution debate, then these politicians who have got a deficit of ideas, they'll have nothing to campaign on. They'll have absolutely nothing to campaign on. Because, you know, they'll not be able to discuss food security. They don't know what it is. They'll not be able to discuss our financial, or rather, monetary or fiscal policy, because they don't know what that is. That's why all of them are craving. They've got a huge appetite to go the 2005 way. So that as we approach 2022, all of us are divided. So that you can say Kikuyu is this side, Kisii is this side, and they win based on the tribal numbers. There is an acute shortage of ideas. What you've seen these leaders talking about, they are bankrupt. You see them reading those statements. Believe you me, even when they go for a one-day retreat, they're not going to fold their sleeves with laptops and they debate ideas. No, they go there because their sponsors have already created a statement. So all they go there is to go and have a cup of tea, and look at the wildlife. And then at around 1 o'clock, because they always want to be covered live, around 1 o'clock, say we are going to have a news conference. You've seen them struggling reading that statement. Are you telling me that if you participated in the creation of a statement for 3 days, you'll have difficulties going through the statement? I mean, why can't they have the off the cuff? Because if you're passionate about an idea, you just speak it from the top of your mind. And when they're discussing all those issues, they're telling us, oh, we don't mind going a parliamentary way or a referendum way, but they're not addressing the core issues. For instance, the issue that has brought a bit of discussion here, where is Nairobi supposed to be a special county like the US, whatever it is. You haven't seen anybody talking about that, but they're saying, nevertheless, we support it. But if you call one of them and ask him, excuse me, sir, what about this? They'll just tell you around small circles. Yeah. They'll quickly tell you embrace or kieleweke. So it's a leadership crisis. And you remember what we said last time, that if you're suffering from malaria, or say you're suffering from malaria and you want to heal, I cannot take the medication for you. Now these guys are saying, like the gentleman from Northeastern is saying, as political leaders, we are going to read these documents and then we'll give a position to the community. So when is Nafula going to read this? Because they want to protect their selfish interest. And I think if you do basic research, the average Kenyan voter is wiser than these elected leaders. Because the average Kenyan voter, especially the one who stays in Kibera, wakes up early in the morning and walks all the way to industrial area, understands the issues affecting Kenyans more than these public servants. For instance, somebody who is responsible for education, but the entire family is in the UK. You are responsible for healthcare. At the slightest, signs of a flu, you've gone to the UK. So the person who really understands our situation is Nafula. But these politicians, they now want to hijack this thing and say that at the right time, we shall tell you our position. We shall pronounce for you. And if we, as Kenyans, if we remain like doves and stay back and say, our politicians, the moment you win an election, you become, you become, that guy is called Einstein. Mm-hmm. So you got that very high IQ and you can think for us. We'll keep on bleeding till the cows come home. We must look for these politicians, and Wetangula has indicated that please print this thing for politicians. So are you telling me that these guys don't have smartphones? Don't you recall at some stage there was a crisis at the National Assembly that all of them were offered tablets? So where else are they supposed to get these documents from? Don't they have those tablets where they can read this thing? Do they want to... There's something mediocrity, a leadership crisis. People who don't care about us, they go to Naivasha, they come up with that statement which has already been sponsored by somebody, and they pay the per diems, allowances, and I don't want to name names. And then they come out, like they're on top of Mount Kenya saying we are working for Kenyans. They're not working for Kenyans. They're working for their selfish interest. All right. So we must read ourselves as Kenyans and understand.
Okay. A quick one, and maybe to remind Jerotich, in a political strategy table, there are 3 things that you normally look out for. 1 is money, 2, masses, 3, confusion. Now, what Kenyans are supposed to look at now here is not the first 2. The third one, organized confusion. And why am I calling it organized confusion? I think within the system and the process, there are people who are hell-bent to stifling Kenyans from having a say on the BBI. How do you have it that nobody in the streets of Nairobi or anywhere in this country nobody has the hard copy of the original BBI report away from the BBI people? How do you expect my grandmother, who the only language she understands is Nandi, the only phone she has can only call and receive a message? How? She doesn't have those smart things. She can't even see them. True, the other thing to whoever is in charge of this BBI, just print these documents en masse and just print them in as many languages as possible so that when Kenyans politicians say they support, we can echo back. But if they are only saying they support in the front, there will be a problem. And lastly, there is a mediocre point that I have seen people peddle around as a reason to support BBI, and I think it is we are just scratching the barrel. When you tell people that we support BBI because it will take, what is the name of the Minister of Health again?
Cicely.
It will take Cicely to Kenyatta Hospital. I think we should ban that document for the simple reason. If today I'm manufacturing contraceptives, you are saying the best practice in the world is that I should use the same contraceptive. I think we are missing the point.
Let's take a short break.
Confusion is right. Confusion is right.
Allow us to take a short break right now. We'll continue discussing this, but organized